Hey guys, Morgan's Maintenance. Today's tool review, I'm going to talk about one of the products that I recently got in the mail from Knipex. I got the Swedish pipe wrench, the bolt cutter, and then the tool I'm going to talk about today, if you haven't seen that video, I also got the Knipex 6 1/4 StepCut cable shears. Part number on that is 9511-160. And what they claim with this is that it's cable cutting made easy. Innovative step cutting separates and cuts wires one by one. That's why they call it the step cut. You got those different gradations in there. It says it's 40% easier than with standard cable shears of the same length. I can't test that because I don't have anything else cable shears wise that's this length. I'm going to test it against some of the other products I have that also do some wire cutting and show you, to me, that that's the big deal with this, is the size. If you're a person who wants to carry around something to cut lots of different things and cut it easy with a small, handprint and small amount of space it takes up on maybe a little side pouch or your pocket or whatever it might be, for the size that these are, what they cut it's pretty amazing to me, the more that I've been trying them out over the last week or so. But again, they say there's cutting edge gradations, cut wires one after one. It cuts multi-core stranded copper and aluminum cables up to 1 gauge. And it says all those things about this. And again, I'm going to show you some cutting of some wires today. This compared to the Lyman's, the forged wire strippers, and then also these cutters here, the 9511-200s that I have, because that's what they're made for, cutting things like that as well. And to show you the difference of ease and the amount of pressure you've got to put on for the size, and then what also it does maybe with some stranded wires or some stranded cables that are all in one single cable, versus maybe if you use your Lyman's for something like that, what it does to those wires. But hopefully it'll be interesting, and hopefully you'll just be able to see, maybe these are something you might would want. Can you get the job done with other tools? Sure. But can you get it in such a small footprint and done better and easier? That's up for you to decide, but I'm going to show you what we got as we go cutting these cables. All right, so I'm going to start out with some 14-3 non-metallic sheath cable. This is kind of what this cable shear is made for. You can see even right here on the packaging, that's kind of what they've got in the picture. That's what they're planning on doing. And the idea is that instead of maybe, say, if you use a straight cutter of some way, it's just going to smash all three of these together and then cut those at one time and smash those cables, whereas they say the cable shear will cut one by one through each one. So say, hypothetically, let's say you normally use your Lyman's for this and you want to go through there. Let's see the kind of force I've got to put on. Not a lot. Squeezes right in. You can see there how that flattened those three, kind of moved those cables around. I don't know that I can get it kind of zoomed in on the actual wire itself. But now let me try it with the cable shears, the 6 1/4 cable shears. We'll cut this end. You can see that it goes over it fairly easy. No effort whatsoever. And it seems like to me it's a whole lot, use the word fluffier, if that's the right word, out here on the end. All the copper is nice and clean. Again, flip it back over to this Lyman side. You can see that I've got kind of everything's pinched together. I've kind of got points on all that copper. You can see the shiny kind of hitting in just one spot, versus on this one, it's the whole entire wire. It's still like it's a cleaner cut, much cleaner cut. You can tell just by looking at that. I hope you can see it. I don't know if you can or not, but again, very easy with these. And if you look at the size comparison, if you want to carry these around instead of this, I mean, that's a lot less weight, a lot less size, all those things. Now, obviously, if you're using your Lyman's for other things and you've got these in your hand, can you cut this with that? Sure. Is it the best thing to cut it with? I don't know. I don't know how much that affects those conductors over time. But again, this is kind of what these are made for. So that was 14-3. And then again, if you take out your regular shears here, it actually seems like to me that takes way more force than the Lyman's or the step cuts. And then if I take my forged wire strippers and cut that same thing, very easy as well. But again, it's just 14-3. And I think, to me, the forged wire strippers do a pretty good job as well. I think they're better than the Lyman's because it's kind of the similar cutting head. It's not such a blunt, straight edge. but it doesn't have that gradations to where you still get a little bit of, you know, pinching involved instead of it just being cut straight. So that's 14.3. Here's some 14.4. So now let's go with, again, Lyman's. Very easy. Still got a lot of, this one's actually stranded instead of solid. Then we'll cut it with the StepCuts. Very easy. I mean, it goes through that like it's, I mean, you can even almost do slow motion here, and you can see that it doesn't even affect the outside of that. It doesn't change those at all. As I close that up, none of these wires are even moving. Versus, let's check that again with the Lyman's. You can see how it just moves all those around, starts pinching things. You got, it's all pinched together. And again, does it cut it? Yes. And is it probably cutting it in a way that this is totally drastically damaging the wires? Probably not. How many of you have been cutting wires like that with these for years? Have you burnt any houses down? Probably not. But again, it's one of those, if you care about the right tool for the job type thing. Is this better? Probably so, and it does cut, and it cuts extremely easy. But again, to me, it's the size. The fact that I can have this size of a tool instead of carrying around a big pair of 9-inch Lyman's, if I'm cutting cable like this, and that's all I'm doing is going around and cutting cables and things, because obviously, again, there's some things you can do with a pair of Lyman pliers that you can't do with these. So now let's get into, we've cut 14.3, 14.4. I didn't cut the 14.4. I'll cut the 14.4 with these, the cable shears, and then also the forged wire stripper. Again, all really easy. These are all things that, you know, you'd have no problem doing with any of these tools. Add some more wire to the graveyard over here. Now we're going to get into some 6-gauge. It's kind of solid stranded. It's big strands. So we'll see what it does with this. Very easy. And then I can also, it's the amount that I've got to spread this handle out is not very much to be able to get that in there. I can do it easily one-handed, and it takes very little effort. I mean, I'm not squeezing hardly at all. That's the StepCut. Again, it's doing a very nice job on that. It's cutting it well. So if you go with Lyman's, actually takes a little bit more effort. So again, bigger tool, more effort just to cut this. And again, it's hard for, you can't tell the effort I'm putting on things. As far as for these cable shears, that takes more effort than even the Lyman's. And then if you get into the forged wire strippers, that's actually, to me, that's easier than the Lyman's. And the cable shears, not as easy as the StepCut. So again, you got the smallest tool out of the 4 of these. Takes the least amount of effort to cut that wire. And it's even whenever it's going through, I think it's the reason why it takes the least amount of effort is because it's cutting each and every one of these individually as it's cutting through there. That's why it's the StepCut. So you're getting each, it cuts through easier because you're cutting 1, 2, 3, 4 versus this is having to cut through whatever it is that it's touching. If it's touching 2 of them, it's cutting through the 2 at the one time, so it takes a little more effort. Same thing with all these cutters. They're having to go through multiple strands at once versus this is cutting each individual strand as it goes through that. So again, that's the 6-gauge stranded, but it's a lot of solid wires to me inside of that stranded, basically, because it's 6-gauge. So then you get into, this is 10-gauge solid wire NM cable or Romex, whatever you want to call it. And so yes, I can cut that with my Lyman's. That might be what I normally do. And it takes significant effort. You know, I have to really pull down on that. If you did that all day, you would end up with some pot pie forearms over here. Maybe some of you've already got those. I used to have them back in the day, but it seems like they're getting weaker and weaker. So then you get out something like these cable shears. Again, lots of effort. I almost even have to two-hand that. So I can get it with one hand. Significant amount of effort with that. And then you get into the forged wire strippers. That's the easiest of the three so far. I don't have to really, it still takes some effort, but I'm not having to like throw my shoulder into it or anything, or even, you know, natural instinct even with this one was while I was using it, I almost wanted to bring my second hand over and grab a hold of it because my instinct was telling me you need more strength. Well, now let's get into the baby of the bunch, the littlest of the three. Again, the head barely makes it around all three of these, but it will, or all four wires within here, but it does. And you can see, I mean, it cuts all four wires. It's just barely not long enough to get that little bitty nub of the sheathing right there. But I mean, I'm talking no effort whatsoever, because it basically cut the white wire there, if you can see white. And then I just cut the ground. And then I cut the black and the red. It cuts each wire in there as you're cutting instead of trying to go through all of them at once. So smallest pair of cutters that I have out here in front of me, and it's the easiest ones as far as for cutting. I don't have any problem going through any of these wires. They fit in your hand nice. They'll fit in your pocket even better. So again, it just depends on what you do. I mean, obviously, if I'm already carrying this around with me, or I'm carrying these around with me doing a lot of other work, you might say, well, I'm not going to carry a whole nother extra pair of cutters. But if you're cutting a lot every day, you're making, you know, hundreds of cuts. Why would you want to make 100 hard cuts when you can make 100 easy cuts? And again, these are only rated for certain things really, but I mean, we use cutters a lot of times for a lot of things they're not rated for. It just depends on how long you want them to last. But everything that I've cut with it today, everything I've cut with it in the last couple of weeks, it's by far been the easiest cuts that I've made out of any of the tools, you know, like I said, that I have out here. Really great for cutting wires. I would definitely recommend these if you're a person who cuts a lot of wire, because that's what they're made for. Again, they're not going to give you any other function beside that. So if you're not looking for that kind of a tool, this one might not be for you, but I'm telling you, it's pretty nice. So let me know what you think about it. I know there's probably a lot of people out there that have these, but I'm interested to know how you guys have been using them in the field and what you think about them. If you really like them, or if you feel like they're, you know, you don't use them as much because all they do is cut wire, but man, do they do it well. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you have any comments or questions in the comments below. I always appreciate each and every one of those. Hope that you guys stay safe. Have a blessed day. See you on the next video.